allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, thank you all for being here. We're going to do the proclamation and some of the work around veteran stuff first. I will let you know now that when we're done with that, I will mention something to the effect if you have more important things to do in your day than stay here for the rest of our business meeting, you're more than welcome to leave. I've already been asked about that this morning, and that's a standard operating procedure here. So we appreciate you all taking some time and being here. The agenda item of the proclamation is it's called National Invest in Veterans Week. And I'm going to read the proclamation. We're going to have our information technology team, our public information team, call off some of the names of you all that are here. And we're going to do it in groups. We're going to do it veterans who invested in veterans, business that hire veterans, and then specifically veterans-owned businesses. So each of you should be in one of those categories. We're going to ask you to come up. We're going to give each of you by name a proclamation, and then do a group picture with each of those groups. It's too large of a group to do one big group picture. And then I have, after that, a few comments about a couple specific veterans. But please, when I read those comments, understand that I just picked a few off of the list, that my comments really reflect all the veterans and all those businesses that hire veterans. We didn't have time today for me to talk about each and every one of you that's here today, but certainly the comments are reflective of each and every one of you and what you do in our community. So let me start with the proclamation. So do you have a copy of the actual proclamation, please? They print the text out real big for me so I can see it. So this is a proclamation, and the proclamation title is Douglas County Invest in Veterans Week, March 1st through March 7th, 2022. Whereas we recognize that the freedoms we enjoy as Americans have been bought and protected at a high price throughout our history by millions of United States servicemen and servicewomen who have donned the uniform of our United States Armed Forces and built a noble tradition of faithful, dedicated service to our nation. Whereas we continue to draw inspiration from the heroism and dedication of those who have served and are currently serving, and sacrifices they have made for the cause of liberty and justice. And whereas we have made it a priority to honor and support veterans in Douglas County. And whereas we recognize that veterans and veterans group in Douglas County are an economic and essential asset to our communities. And whereas we recognize that this week is about honoring our local veterans who own businesses in our communities, as well as those businesses that give priority to hiring veterans. And whereas we recognize that this week is also about honoring residents who support and invest in our local veterans and our veteran communities. And whereas we encourage our residents to honor our local veteran population by supporting and buying from veteran-owned businesses, offering programs to help veteran entrepreneurs, hiring veterans, providing veteran educational development and support programs, volunteering for programs that support veterans, and by helping veterans achieve mental health empowerment. Whereas we recognize that we can never fully repay our debt of gratitude to these heroic men and women who serve, but know that we can continue to support, hire, and invest in them is a good start. And now therefore, be it resolved that Douglas County Commissioners do hereby recognize March 1st through March 7th, 2022 as Douglas County Investment in Veterans Week, and urge all of our citizens to honor our veterans, hire our veterans, support businesses owned by veterans, and rededicate themselves to the preservation and protection of our liberties under the Constitution of the United States. And that is signed today, the 2nd of March, 2022, by myself, Commissioner Tim Freeman, Commissioner Chris Boyce, and Commissioner Tom Kress. Thank you. So I believe now Tamara's going to have each group sort of come up, and I'm going to give a certificate to each person.
The first group we're going to do is veterans who invest in veterans. We have Jim Little, who was a Chief Warrant Officer in the U.S. Navy. He's retired.
So come forward, please, and I'll hand you the proclamation. We'll do a quick photo and have you wait while we get the rest of the group on. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for your service. I want to do a photo?
Yep.
Apologize, everybody. I'm a little fat and bald in these photos.
John Pearson, retired Air Force.
John Pearson.
Mary Newman Keys, our Veteran Service Officer.
Also known as St. Mary.
Carol Hunt, Wings of Hope, Veterans Forum, and Parade. You name it, she's involved with it.
All the above.
All the above. Gwen Best, the current president of the Douglas County Veterans Forum. Larry Hill, former president, Douglas County Veterans Forum. Dan Loomis, who's our county clerk, retired Army. And a Chief Warrant Officer. All right, so that concludes that category.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, now we're on to businesses that hire veterans. We have Michael Kurtz with Douglas County Government, and he is retired Army. Representing the Roseburg Veterans Affairs Hospital and Facility, Nicole Hansen, who's a public affairs specialist, and John Phillips, emergency manager. And John, you were in the Air Force?
Yep, retired Air Force.
Retired Air Force, that's what I thought.
Each of you. One at a time. Because I don't check one all the time.
And Sarah Baumgartner with CHI Mercy Medical. Casey Bolton, retired Army, Aviva Health.
Sir. Thank you. Cover you a little bit. Let's get a photo.
Jim Baird, the general manager with Roseburg Urban Sanitary. Andy Owens and Joe Moody, who is the veteran from A&M Transport in Glendale.
First, if we could.
Yes.
Let's try this. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Steve Burton, and I believe his wife Kelly, from Grocery Outlet in Roseburg. Toby Luther with Abby's Pizza and Lone Rock Timber. And I believe his special guests are Chris, oh my goodness, Al Mendinger. With U.S. Army, he's a U.S. Army veteran, and Alan Sims, who is a U.S. Navy veteran. And they both work. Big group. No, that's it for that category. This is the higher veteran. Oh, sorry, Steve. Steve with also with us. Come up. Go ahead and get a picture with real quick. All right.
So organize this for a picture.
So let's go all across the back wall here. So if you want to step up behind me here, there's a step that goes up there. Get you all up there. Such a handshake. Yeah, you want me to sit this up too? Just sit down. You want to show your certificates, please?
There's more than one camera.
Go across to the justice podium.
Yeah. Hey, good. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you all.
All right, now we have some of these crossover to different categories we tried to separate. Veteran-owned businesses. So Rusty and Melanie Lineker with Source One Serenity out of Hawaii. And Cecilia Mc- All right, Josh Murphy, who's a veteran, U.S. Marine Corps from Umpqua Survival, and he has with him
Chris Lamont.
Chris. I know it was Chris. Dean Thiessen and his wife Jeannie, and Dean is a veteran of the U.S. Navy, grocery outlet in Winston. Jason Inslee, U.S. Army veteran, co-owners with Wagon Hopper Meats and Glide, include Kerry White, U.S. Navy veteran, and John Woods. And this is more than just Wagon Hopper Meats. I believe you own 5 businesses. Something like that.
I'll figure that out next time you're here.
And Sam Gross with Loggers Pizza, who's a U.S. Army veteran.
That's partly responsible for me being way overweight.
And Joe Mello, who we invited today from Real Mellow Fishing, he's a guide, he's a veteran U.S. Army Marine, or U.S. Marine, sorry. Was not able to attend today. This is our group.
Up above again?
Yeah, but that was great. Nobody wants to stand.
Got room for one over on this side, Sam. longer. I appreciate y'all taking the time to be here. Something I learned when I was in the Oregon legislature, I had the honor to serve as the vice chair of the House Veterans Committee. And I joined the House Veterans and Preparedness Committee, and our chair was more focused on preparedness than veterans. So I had the opportunity to travel around the state with the governor to deployment ceremonies, the ceremonies when our veterans and our servicemen came back from war, and the funerals. And I learned a tremendous amount during that time. One thing I learned is our community here in Douglas County is different than a lot of communities. We talk about honoring veterans and supporting veterans. A lot of communities talk about it. We actually do it here. When I say we, I mean you. You all do this work every day, and we live in a community that's pretty remarkable. And I think part of that's because we have the VA hospital here, but I think part of it is just the rural nature of our community and the fact that we believe in this country. What we see going on overseas today shows the determination of people when push really comes to shove and they have to step up. So I'm going to talk about a couple veterans today that I've worked with closely over the years, but again, recognize the comments I make about these specific veterans are traits and attributes that I see in each and every veteran. So if I don't call you by name, don't be discouraged by that. Here what I'm saying really is about each of you. So the first veteran I want to talk about is Chief Warrant Officer Jim Little, Navy retired. So I met Jim Little, I think I met him working on the state veterans home, but I really got to know him standing on the sidewalk outside of the VA trying to keep our hospital open. And Jim has an amazing 30-year career in the Navy and serving our country, and I could spend hours talking about that, and he is pretty humble about how he talks about that, but it was a pretty amazing career. But really what I want to talk about today is what he's done since he got out of the Navy. He didn't quit serving, so those skills, that dedication, that education that he had in the Navy, he brought to our community. He picked our community, and he's here helping every single day with veterans issues, advocating for veterans, and helping fellow veterans. And that is a trait I see in many veterans, but no veteran more than Jim Little. Jim, thank you for your work here in our community. The next veteran I want to talk about is Colonel Casey Bolton, Army retired. There's a lot of different things I can talk about Colonel Bolton and the work that he does in our community, but there's a pattern here I want you to hear me talk about, and that is service. So the gentlemen I'm talking about today are all warriors. They had to do some pretty difficult work. But when they came back to our community, they tried to figure out a way to make it better. And each of them do that. Casey's role as the CEO of Aviva is to help medical services for our community. And not just here in Roseburg, but throughout the county they have facilities. So his desire to serve and help others translates into his work every single day. 2 years ago, our community, along with the state, the nation, and the world, was facing a new enemy we didn't know anything about. And this was this pandemic thing that we were getting ready to do. And we didn't have much knowledge of what was going to happen. So one of the things we did early on, working with the sheriff, our emergency manager, Michael Kurtz, our HR director, we called together a group of folks to start talking about what an emergency operations center would look like, so the county could be in a position to help our citizens through what may be coming as this pandemic. We actually called Casey and interviewed him for a position in the emergency operations center, but it didn't take very long into the conversation to figure out that he needed to be our incident commander. His skill set, his ability, his battle-tested knowledge, and his commitment to serve were all those things we needed to run the Emergency Operations Center and to get us in a position to respond the very best we could as a county to what might be coming, to the unknown of what the pandemic was. In those early days, nobody knew what was going to happen. But having a person like Casey experience from being in the military, that education, that knowledge, and that commitment was crucial to our response. Casey, thank you for stepping up, and thank you for all you do in our community. The next veteran I'd like to talk about is Michael Kurtz. Michael Kurtz was a specialist in the Army, was deployed, and as with the others I've talked about, all that I've talked about today, is decorated for his service. Michael grew up in Riddle, Oregon, a little tiny community here in Douglas County, and like many of our veterans here from Douglas County have felt that calling and that need to serve, and he did. Served at a pretty high level in the work that he did. That was some pretty difficult times, and in a way that was pretty dangerous. Again, I'm not going to talk a lot about his service, but to tell you that skill that he learned in that time in the Army, that education that he received, and that experience has translated into having an amazing, we call him our human resource director, but he's really one of our main go-to guys here at the county. When the pandemic hit, the Board of Commissioners assigned 2 people here at the county to be in charge of the response. They delegated authority to me and to Michael Kurtz to take care of whatever needed to be taken care of for this pandemic. So that level of responsibility and that trust that this Board of Commissioners put in Michael cannot be overstated. It was really important to us to have a person of his abilities, of his knowledge, and his commitment helping us guide us through what we thought, and it turned out to be pretty difficult times. Michael Kurtz brings the skill that he learned in the military to work every day with him here at the courthouse, and helps us as commissioners honor veterans and helps us to have the very best staff possible here at the county to serve you all. Michael, thank you for your service. This next gentleman, for no fault of his own, has been taking a little bit of beating, and I apologize for that, but I want to take a minute and talk about Chief Warrant Officer Dan Loomis, retired Army. Dan Loomis and his wife have an amazing, very highly decorated military career, both of them. I believe she may have been a little higher ranked than you when you all got done. She tends to point that out when you visit with her. But that doesn't mean that you weren't, your level of retirement and your work in the military wasn't very honorable. But again, retired from the military, doesn't have to work, has a great retirement, great service record, comes back to our community where he grew up and decides, I'm not done giving yet. I'm not done serving. How can I step up and help my community? And he's looked at several different opportunities. He landed on being our county clerk. We had a real tragic situation here where our county clerk's husband was killed during Snowmageddon. And we needed somebody to step in that had a skill set of managing people and running a department. And Dan very humbly stepped forward and said, I can help you with that. And he comes to work every day with that knowledge and that honor and that absolute integrity to run our county clerk office. Dan, thank you for your service, and thank you for the work you're doing here at the county with us today. And then lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about my favorite veteran who can't be with us today. He's having some medical issues, and that's Mel Cheney. Mel Cheney was a military police officer in Vietnam. Like many of those that served in Vietnam, he doesn't talk a whole lot about his time in Vietnam. But again, as a warrior, when he came home, he wanted to help. He wanted to make a difference. He went to school and learned how to do cancer treatments, but that wasn't good enough. He wanted to learn how to and have an education where he could teach others to provide cancer services to people that were sick. And he went on to run cancer facilities and was hired here to Douglas County to the Community Cancer Center to build back what is now a state-of-the-art cancer facility to provide services here in our community for people with cancer. Mel took his commitment for our country, his knowledge, his ability, his desire to serve, again, like many of the veterans here today and the veterans in our community, to help others. He wasn't worried about helping himself. He was worried about what he could do in his life to make sure he was doing the very best to help others. Mel Cheney is my best friend. I apologize he can't be here today, but I want us all to give him a round of applause. Mel Cheney, thank you for your service. And that's what I have prepared today. I have two fellow commissioners that may want to say a word or two. Please.
Earlier, we heard in the proclamation, and part of it that we talked about here, that businesses that gave a priority to hire. And I just want to say, I can't imagine a business not making it a priority to hire veterans. In my business, veterans have been an integral part for a long time, and I truly value them. This last year, 3 out of my staff were veterans. And I only have a 7-person staff, and it's a big deal to me. Their work ethic, their dedication, and loyalty, just making it very much a winning combination for me. My key person is a retired Army veteran, and I know every day that he'll be there. It's not a question. I know he'll show up. I know he'll do the job. I know he'll run that business just like it's his own, and that allows me to be here to do this work. So, but that's really just a thank you to all you veterans. It makes all the difference in the world. Thank you.
I'm not sure there's much more I can add to what you guys have already said. I just really appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you.
So again, Tamara, do you have something else?
Can I have the floor for a second, Chair?
Yes?
Okay. So we actually, in part of this Invest in Veterans Week, we have a special presentation to do, and if Jim Little could come up, please.
Jim, I get back at you now. This is
This is not on my script.
I wanted to share a quick 2 stories. First, many of you are aware of the 28 forgotten and unclaimed veteran cremains that we located. And Carol Hunt is in the office in the audience, and she was one of the ladies that discovered that. And the first funeral that we had was for 4 World War I veterans. And we had to select someone appropriate to receive the flag during the military honors that were given to those heroes. And the person that we selected unanimously by the veterans community was Commissioner Tim Freeman. And that kind of indicates the honor and the respect that we have for him. In Monterey, there's a college that naval officers go to, and in one class, there was a class on leadership. And the professor told all of the students, you have 2 hours to sit down and write your description of the perfect leader. So many of the students, they sat down, began writing, and one sat down, he wrote 1 sentence, and then he handed his paper in and left the room. Well, the others wrote pages and pages of what they felt a good leader was. And that officer who wrote 1 sentence received an A. And all he wrote on his paper was, take care of your troops. And that is an indication of Commissioner Freeman. You take care of county employees, you take care of all the citizens of Douglas County, and you certainly take care of veterans, their issues and their desires, and that's one reason why I chose Douglas County to live in. We were one of the first counties to we honor veterans on our county quarter sign, and we were copied by many other counties. But I feel that our letters on that sign should be in gold, and much of that is due because of your state leadership. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I have much more. I could stand up here and talk all day.
That's been more than
Thank
enough.
you.